ESK, how DoorDash and Uber Eats really operate. Why? The vast majority of people do not understand how these apps work. And it's my opinion, these companies don't want people to know how much they are making, meanwhile stiffing the drivers actually doing the work. None of the fees you pay to these companies go to the drivers. I'd like to provide some insight and answer any questions anyone might have. This post is simply meant to be informative, so please don't take offense. If you are offended, I'll just assume you are a habitual non-tipper. First and foremost, drivers are not employees. We are independent contractors. These companies do not want us to be employees because then they'd actually have to pay a fair wage. Drivers take on all of expense, insurance, vehicle maintenance, gas, phone bill, etc. The base pay drivers typically receive is $2.50. Sadly, this means we really depend on customers' tips to make any money. Yes, these companies should be paying more and not expecting customers to make up the difference. Most of us would be happy to deliver for no minimal tips if these companies were actually paying worth a damn. Most drivers operate off a model of $1 to $2 a mile. If your order is declined enough times, they will start to raise the base pay. Meanwhile, your food sits there getting cold until someone finally accepts or your order is canceled. Sometimes your order just isn't being picked up because there are no drivers in the area. When you order on the app, it shows you the distance of the restaurant to the address you put in. As a rule of thumb, I try to never order anything 8+ miles away unless I'm picking it up myself. Some people order food as far as 20+ miles away. Be prepared to tip well, as most drivers will decline these offers. I personally don't mind taking long-distance orders as long as the tip is good. But I also drive a Prius, so it can still be profitable for me, whereas it won't be for someone else. Stacked orders, 2 together, are typically offered to us as a stack. It is out of our control, and one of the only ways drivers can actually make a profit. Unless you are paying for priority, they are dropped off in the order they are picked up. If you are really nice to the driver, they can change the order of drop-off, but definitely don't expect that. Drivers may pick up orders off of multiple apps. Per our contract, we are allowed to do this. However, we are given a specific time the order needs to be delivered by, and 10 minutes past that is a contract violation. If your driver is excessively late, rate accordingly and report this to the platform. Drivers like that make those of us who take pride in providing prompt service look bad. Please rate your drivers. If they followed directions and you had a positive delivery experience, 5 stars is always appropriate and appreciated. If they didn't, rate accordingly, but make sure you didn't put in an incorrect address or something. Drivers that fall below 4.7 on DoorDash can be deactivated, and if they aren't providing a quality experience, they should be. Drivers also should be using hot-cold bags to keep your food a consistent temperature. If your food shows up ice cold, it's very likely they aren't using one. I myself have a large catering bag and pizza bags, but typically take the food out as I arrive so I'm not fumbling with the bag at your door. If your order has been dropped by multiple people, it is very likely the store or restaurant is running extremely late. Drivers are given a pickup time when we accept the order, and this is the time we expect the order to be ready. Most will wait 5 to 10 minutes past the pickup time because it tanks our ratings to cancel and is also a waste of our time to show up and leave empty-handed. We do not get paid more to wait. I think that covers most of it, but please ask anything and I'll do my best to answer. This gig has its ups and downs. I certainly wouldn't recommend it as a full-time job because it is so inconsistent. I've only been driving the last few years, but I can say I've had a mostly positive experience and great customers. Not what the drivers want to hear, but please stop using these apps. They exist solely to extract all the value out of your transaction with the restaurant. It was fun when these startups were in the mode of burning VC dollars to acquire users, and that is what covered their costs. But now they're trying to be profitable, and those profits need to come from somewhere. To that end, you pay more, the restaurant earns less, and/or the delivery fee gets diverted from drivers to the platforms. I'm a DoorDash driver, and I fully support this message. I'll find a way to make do, but we need to cut these exploitative companies wherever we can if we want society to move forward. Serious question, but if they're exploitative, why do you work for them? If enough people stopped, then the company would have to pay more or fold. There's a rate that people will pay and a rate that people will work for. The difference goes to the middleman. It's their job to maximize this difference. This is how all resellers work, whether they resell goods or labor. Any business in any capitalist system makes profit off of exploitation. If I draw a line against never being exploited, I'd never work, and if it lead to that, I may as well jump off a cliff. I'm just a guy who has bills to pay, and up to a certain point I simply gotta do what I gotta do. Sometimes you're awarded the time and space to make a stand, and some industries are simply easier to stand against than others. This is one of them. I don't really like the any business in capitalist system makes profit off of exploitation. I have a small company, 8 employees. Every employee makes a minimum of $125. Average pay is $200. They all work from home in various parts of the U.S., wherever they want to live. How am I exploiting my employees? Why don't you ask your customers, or reflect how you're generating such large incomes for them to have in the first place? It's great if you have a successful business and have found a way to stick to a moral ground, but don't think for a second that a company like DoorDash is even remotely comparable to whatever you've claimed to be doing. I won't be replying anymore. I won't have a satisfying answer for you. Think whatever you want. What's your business and how much do you make? What are your employees doing for you? What are you doing? Just asking how you're exploiting without giving details on your business and its finances is pretty sketchy. I mean, are your 8 employees your kids? Are you sex trafficking? Are you a Hollywood agent? You're asking the question and leaving out quite a bit. That's what I'd do too. Those companies would rather shut down than pay more for less. Okay, but then they wouldn't be exploiting people, right? It was nice in the beginning when not many places delivered themselves. Now that they do, I try and order directly from them and avoid these apps. But I find that more often than not, the restaurants use Uber Eats or whatever else to deliver the food to me. Shoot, my last Amazon delivery driver was riding around in a U-Haul van. It's actually pretty common for mail carriers like UPS to rent vans and box trucks during the holidays due to increased demand. Not surprising Amazon would too, although I think most of their delivery fleet is actually contracted third-party businesses, even if they drive official-looking Amazon vans. The actual advice: I don't use the gig economy. It destroys the real economy where people are at least employees. Little as that means in the US, it conveys some base protections. This, exactly. Too many comments trying to defend using the app, which if we're being honest is purely for convenience. But consumerism is why corporations profit and continue to push the envelope. Consumerism is what feeds the beast and kills the little guys. I am loving the mass exodus from Amazon Prime and believe it's trickling over to these platforms. Let's keep it up. Thank you, OP, for the insight. Although deleting the app is the best counter to these corporations, hopefully those who continue to use the app will consider an extra $1 or $2 for the drivers. Those saying automated vehicles are the way to go. Transportation is already massively at threat and employs over 13 million people in the US. Unemployment is already as bad as we can imagine. Then add an additional 6 million, estimated, likely much higher, illegal immigrants in 2023 alone to that pool. There's a mass exodus from Amazon Prime? Yes. Elaborate? There's a bunch of people on social media posting about leaving Amazon Prime. The vast majority of people that have it don't care about the changes, aren't canceling, and aren't posting about it. Loud minority is loud. Good old availability heuristic. I know Amazon is likely doing booming business because I'm moving and crowdsourced my boxes, and there were several that were Amazon from several households. I haven't actually been seeing anything about people leaving Prime. Thanks for the insight. Yes, check any Amazon groups. People are canceling left and right. Seems like recently customer service has become a complete circus, and refunds seem to be a huge issue. but mainly because ads are now included for Prime members and some other things. Basically want more from already paid members and defeating the purpose of being a member. Number of Prime users is going up. 8statista.com/statistics 86106 hold total number of households Amazon Prime subscription US.com statistics 86106 total number of households Amazon Prime subscription USA. I'm not accepting cookies, so I didn't open. But title said 2018-2022. Probably just a bunch of outliers that will have zero impact, just like those Netflix users who said they're going to cancel when Netflix was going to crack down on password sharing and implement ads on their basic tier. Unemployment is bad as we can imagine. It's at historic lows. Based on what statistics? On just illegal immigrants? In a modern world with more billionaires than ever in history? Reported and not reported? Many believe trillionaires exist. I mean, their company's worth several trillion, so it's not far-fetched. To say asking for a fair wage from a billionaire is too much, just my imagination, I guess. The quality of jobs is just as important a discussion. Based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment is as bad as you can imagine at 3%, low. Number of Prime users is going up. fstatista.com/statistics/86106 total number of households Amazon Prime subscription USA. 8statista.com/86106 total number of households Amazon John Prime subscription USA. I'm not accepting cookies, so I didn't open, but title said 2018-2022. Here's one that seems to have numbers for 2023. /backlinko.com/Amazon-Prime users.com/Amazon Prime users. Anyway, anything I checked seems to show subscriber numbers are either slightly up or at least very close to what they were before. Universal, basic income. This the way, but who's going to pay for it? The rich people? But they worked so hard for their money. We can't honestly expect them to give society free handouts. People just need to suck it up and get a better job instead of being lazy. All of the sarcasm. Eat the rich. They're insanely helpful for people with disabilities. I didn't want to touch that one. Too loaded of a statement. It basically boils down to whether it's necessity over convenience. Avoiding platforms that exploit the working class is the point. That's fair. My point more is that it is not always purely for convenience. For some of us, heading out to the shop is a big ordeal. As soon as I discovered that I pay more for food ordered from the DoorDash site than directly from the restaurant, and that most of my orders were almost double the price compared to just going to pick it up myself, I stopped. I hate punishing the driver, but I just can't support predatory companies like DD and UE. Yeah, I stopped using the app when I ordered a Big Mac that costed me over $20. I paid $64 last week to have a burrito delivered, but it was New Year's Eve. I was in a hotel with COVID, and I couldn't even find a pizza delivery in the area. I should have just called room service, but I was honestly tired of eating the same foods all week. The burrito was meh and predictably cold, but I didn't starve. What's wild to me is that the same burrito will probably also cost $50 to have it delivered tomorrow. The only other time I use these apps is when I'm traveling for work, and so it's a reimbursement expense, or I still have some Uber credit from Amex at the end of the month. Many restaurants will just boost the price of the goods to make up for the cut that these businesses impose on them. My file owns a deli and said that their percentage, 30% or something crazy like that, meant that he was making next to nothing or sometimes losing money when selling stuff. So he raised his prices by 30% to make up for that loss. So if you are ordering from him, you're paying 30% more right off the bat. Then you've got the fees and tip. In the end, it is ridiculous how much more you spend just for the convenience. In most areas that I've lived, which tend to be fairly dense suburbia, I've always found pizzerias and Chinese takeout places have their own delivery people. So it isn't like you are completely out of options if you need to get delivery. We need the apps, though. Something has to coordinate all those couriers. Maybe we can form an open-source driver's coop to develop an app to compete with Grubhub. Yeah, and to pay for server costs and a few developers, we can just take a small percent of the tips, but then it kind of starts to seem like the same model. The model is mostly fine, Taba. What matters is who is at the top and how big a cut they get. What you want is a board of directors who is voted in by and beholden to the drivers and/or the restaurants. DoorDash has never made a profit. The model is broken. There is no cut for investors to take. No one needs the apps. Food delivery has been going on for decades. It doesn't work that way anymore. The world has moved on. Domino's can't hire delivery drivers because they make better money with DoorDash. The risk model is also better. With only one pizza shop to one driver, both drivers and kitchens are impacted by slow nights and busy nights. With dispatch software, drivers can find jobs quickly, and kitchens can have 1 million drivers on a busy night without having to pay those drivers to hang around doing nothing on a slow night. It's technically still possible for a pizza shop to employ a delivery driver, and some still do, but there are serious disadvantages and risks. Courier dispatch is one of the problems that networked computers are actually really good at solving. So then, what is the OP complaining about? Are food delivery apps a positive for drivers, restaurants, or a negative that they've been forced into at this point? Personally, I don't care about the app's profitability, but I do want the local business's drivers to be on the winning end. It provides an efficiency for the business, employee, and the consumer at a cost to each of them. The argument, I think, is that the apps need to be able to demonstrate that at some point they'll be profitable endeavors, and the way they will seek to accomplish that is by charging ever-increasing costs for removing the aforementioned employee inefficiency to the consumer and seeking a lower labor cost per driver delivery. I think it's a net positive for drivers and restaurants, but perhaps only marginally at this point. Uber and Grubhub have armies of middle managers whose job it is to shave that margin and find the exact point before it stops being worth it and everyone and goes back to the old ways. Chow Local is a good alternative,